So you're thinking about getting a Core 5 Ultra 245K and you look online and nobody is recommending this CPU. Everybody is saying it's terrible. Does it mean you should actually avoid getting one? Well, in this video I've put together a budget build with exactly that CPU, so we can find out. Welcome back at ImWateringPSUs and let's get started. Now the Core 5 Ultra 245K has 6 P-cores and 8 E-cores with no hyper-threading. Now people think, because of the name, this is a direct competitor to a Ryzen 5 9600X, but that's not the case. This thing, in my opinion, actually competes with the Ryzen 7 9700X, one of my favorite CPUs from the latest AMD generation. Now the reason why it competes with that is in multi-core it simply destroys the Ryzen 5, and price-wise we are exactly on the Ryzen 7 range. Especially if you take into consideration that at the moment you have to get a Z890 motherboard because we haven't gotten a locked Intel 1851 chipset yet. So what I went with here today is the MSI Z890S Wi-Fi, which comes in at over 200 bucks for just the motherboard. And it's honestly a pretty mid motherboard, not very good. But hey, at least it's fully unlocked, you can overclock it, you can do whatever you want on it, and we're gonna use that later on. Now for RAM, this CPU supports the new over 8000 MHz CUDIM RAM with the integrated controller on the stick itself, and that's what you should be getting if you can. However, if you're very much budget constrained, like I was here today, 6000 MHz RAM can also be fine, but remember, you're leaving performance on the table. SSD, I recommend you get just a 1TB drive, whatever is cheaper. Here today I went with a 2TB drive because this PC is actually for somebody who's gonna be doing quite a bit of productivity, so it's gonna use the multi-thread power of the Core Ultra 5 and also utilize the extra space. Now for the cooler I went with something a bit unusual because it's brand new, and it's the Gamdia Schione E4. And now this thing is crazy good for the price, okay? It's a 360mm all-in-one water cooler with an integrated display LCD, super easy to mount even on newer sockets, comes with integrated paste. The fans are pre-applied to the cooler, which I like a lot, and they're all daisy chained out of the box. They also daisy chain with the pump. The pump is SATA powered, the fans 4-pin powered. You just plug them into the motherboard and they're ready to go. The screen itself is controlled via the app, where you can put whatever reading you want on it, and also has a very cool infinity mirror on the side, which is also RGB. Now to make all that look decent, I went with Gamdia's 2 for the case, and I got the new Athena M3 case. And now I can't believe how cheap this case is, okay, because it's honestly really good. And initially I wasn't believing the price of this case because it comes with 4 included ARGB fans, and considering I'm putting an all-in-one in, we have a total of 7 fans, all controllable via the button on the case itself, and the case is just a little bit over 50 bucks, which means you don't have to overspend on your case. On the cooler though, you want a bit of margin. You want something that cools the CPU well, trust me. Why, you're wondering, isn't this CPU very efficient? Well, it is at stock, but at stock the performance is the one in which you see on the reviews, which is not the best. But we're gonna do something to it later on. So to complete the build, I just played on the fact that the CPU is very efficient, and I went with a 650 watt deep cool power supply, which costs just a little bit over 50 bucks and is ATX 3.0 compatible, so I didn't have to use any ugly adapters for the RTX 4070 Super, which I got, which is a simple Zotac 2-fan model, pretty cheap too, 600 bucks, and you can bring one home. And the PC is done, and it's what you're seeing here in front of you. Now the case is fully mesh, so we have good ventilation and we have a lot of fans as discussed, which is what makes this PC stand out. So with the configuration out of the way, we can now get to the actual cool part of this build and the actual discussion on the Core Ultra 5. So the key part here is gonna be tweaking. Now on this channel we talk about undervolting all the time because that was a way to get free performance and decrease the temperature on CPUs on every single generation up until now. You can do that even on the 9800X3D, and even on the flagship AMD CPU we are getting extra performance, lower power consumption and better temperature simply by undervolting. Well, this is the first time where we don't need to do that because these CPUs are so efficient out of the box. This thing is going to like 50 degrees under full load. What we can instead do is some proper old school overclocking and RAM tweaking. Now sure, you can still undervolt this thing and I will have a video for it, but if you're planning on getting one, I recommend you watch my overclocking video, which will also be out, and that is what's gonna make a difference. So at the moment you're basically forced to get a Z series motherboard, so we might as well utilize it. So please get a good cooler, good RAM, high speed if possible, and tweak your PC. And if we do that, we can actually make this thing run properly. Now, don't get me wrong, the CPU is plenty fast enough, because here's the thing. If you're pairing this CPU with the GPU we have here today, which is a 4070 Super, it doesn't matter if you overclock it, undervolt it, tweak it, or whatever you do to it. It's not important, because the CPU is gonna be plenty fine, and it's gonna max out the 4070 Super in 99% of use cases at 1080p. This thing is doing 300 FPS locked in Apex Legends, over 240 FPS on the new Call of Duty Black Ops 6, and it's pushing the 360 Hz point on Fortnite with no problem whatsoever. So that's not going to be the problem. But the thing is, if you're in a situation where you want to put a stronger GPU in it and you want to get more out of it, how much can we push this CPU? And here's the thing. With overclocking, you can get a whopping 15 to 20% increase over stock in real-world performance. And by that, I mean RAM and CPU overclocking combined. That's the key part. So if you do all that, this thing is going to destroy the 9700X in gaming. Not to mention in productivity, making it actually a very, very good buy, in my opinion. And that's why I recommend you get a very good cooler with it, since you have to buy a good motherboard and also spend the money on RAM. Do I recommend this CPU if you're gonna leave it at stock? Well, let's be honest. Better value for money is gonna be the AMD AM5 platform, for sure. But if you wanna go Intel, get the extra multi-threading performance and be ready for a future upgrade to an Intel Core Ultra 9, you can get a good cooler for not too expensive, and I think put together a nice PC from Team Blue without overspending. So if you want to build one, I think this is how you should build one. But really, these CPUs are not as bad as the media is portraying them, I think. And also, remember, this is a fully new architecture, which means at launch it's going to be a bit worse than after Windows updates does its thing and after we know how to run it, after proper BIOS updates and with the proper settings. So kind of like Zen 1, when the new Ryzen chips came out, wasn't the best, but then dramatically improved. I think it's gonna be the same for Intel. This was a big reset for them, and I don't actually dislike the new architecture. But I want to hear what you think about down below as well, so please do let me know. And also, if you watched the video this far, maybe drop a like and subscribe, and I hope to see you guys again in another video. Bye bye.